Hi guys, I'm going to make you a quick video about Sophocles' Antigone. I've made you kind of a little cheat sheet. You also have some stuff in the module about Sophocles and his writing and what he added to plays. So Antigone was, even though it was written first, it's the third part of a trilogy. So I'm going to kind of give you a heads up to what happened in the other two parts. So when you jump into Antigone, it will be less confusing. And you will also notice what's happening with the tension. So once upon a time, King Laius and Queen Jocasta in the city of Thebes got married and had a baby. Oedipus was their baby. That means swollen foot. They heard from Tiresias, the blind prophet who went to the oracle of Delphi, so Apollo's oracle where you go to hear your future. And King Laius hears like, hey, your kid that you just had is going to kill his dad and marry his mom and have 4 kids. And they're like, ugh, we cannot have that happen. So they link his feet together with like little baby foot handcuffs, and they give the baby to a servant, and they say, go out and leave him in the woods so he dies, so he can't fulfill the prophecy. The servant's like, that's freaking me out. I don't want to kill a little defenseless baby. Gives him to a shepherd. The shepherd is from Corinth, a different town, and he's like, hey, I'll take him because King Polybus and Queen Merope have no kids and can't have them, and they totally want him, so they're going to be really glad to have this baby. So they raise Oedipus and never tell him that they were his adopted parents. So when he turns 18, he goes to Apollo's oracle and finds out his fate, that he's going to kill his dad and marry his mom. So he leaves who he thinks is his dad and his mom and goes on the road back to Thebes. So he's on the way there, and some guy pushes him off the road in a chariot. Unbeknownst to him, that was really King Laius, and he was traveling. And Oedipus is like, dude, you can't just knock me off the road. So he bonked him on the head and killed his birth dad unknowingly. Then he kept going. The Sphinx was guarding the town, and she's like, you can't pass unless you can solve this riddle. What walks on 4 legs, then 2 legs, then 3 legs? He thought about it, and he's like, oh man, because first as a baby they crawl, and then they walk on 2 legs, and then when they're old they need a cane, so that's the 3rd leg. They're like, wow, you're super smart, you should be king. And then he sees this young pretty hot widow, and she seems sad, so he's like, hey, and she's like, hey. He does not know that it's his birth mom. They end up having 4 kids: Polynices, Eteocles, Esmene, and Antigone. Nobody has 4 heads. It somehow works out. It's Greek tragedy. That's the way it is. So while the kids are growing up, Oedipus and Tiresias tries to tell him a plague comes on the city. And people are dying left and right, and they can't really figure out why. Tiresias is like, hey, King Oedipus, you are bringing the plague on the city because you killed your dad and you don't even know it, and that's a cardinal sin. Oedipus is like, dude, shut up. I saved the city. I solved the riddle. Like, I'm helping. And Tiresias is like, oh, you're so cute. You don't even know what you did. So then Jocasta is listening and is like, wow, this is kind of making sense. He did come right after his dad died. That's pretty weird. I did feel super connected to him. Oh my gosh, if he's my son, that's crazy. So she hangs herself, and he takes the 2 brooches off her like toga, and Oedipus stabs himself in the eyeballs and blinds himself as his punishment for not seeing the truth. Then he banishes himself, because that's the punishment for who's the cause of the plague. So Antigone kind of the kids lead him out. Antigone takes him away. Okay, dad, walks him. So he's kind of out of the picture. So now they don't know who should be king because the queen's dead and the king is banished. So the kids are a little too young to be king. Polynices and Eteocles, the brothers. So Creon is Jocasta's brother. He's married to Eurydice. They have a son named Haman. He becomes king. And some people are like, oh, he's doing us a favor. But But Polynices and Oedipus are like, no, he's taking the throne and kind of usurping it without having real power to it because he's the queen's brother. He's not a son of the king and queen. So Polynices goes to another town because he's sick of Creon and he thinks he should be king. Oedipus fights on Creon's side for Thebes. The two brothers in war kill each other. And so now Creon's like, yep, I totally have access to the throne now because these are just women. So of course they can't, BCE, they can't have any right to the throne. At this same weird time, Antigone is really into Haman, and they're engaged in a weird kind of cousin situation. Who knows how it all works out, but they're engaged to be married. So now we get to the play. While you're reading the play, though, I want you to pay attention because later you will be doing this fabulous worksheet about Aristotle and Antigone and looking at logos, ethos, and pathos to find how each of them uses each of those in the argument. So as you're reading and you're seeing logos, ethos, and pathos, go ahead and mark those bad boys when it comes up. So we get some notes on Sophocles. That's good to read. We see a who's who of our characters, which I already pretty much gave you. Our setting, which we need, is time and place. So we're in Thebes. We start in early morning. And there is a concept of when people are getting together. I just want to show you a couple of things. Okay, so highlight as you go for sure. Look for who's being loyal, who's being disloyal. That's important. Look for when the citizens come in. They believe that Polynices is a traitor because he fought against Creon. So Creon decrees that Oedipus gets a hero's burial since he fought for Thebes, and he wants Polynices' body to be out, given to the dogs, basically. And Antigone is like, hey, no way. My job is to bury my brother. Even though I will be disloyal to the king / my weird uncle / soon-to-be father-in-law, who is going to be really mad at me. So we get kind of the backstory. Here's some logos right here on page 3 that I marked for you. We too shall perish if despite law we traverse the behest or power of kings. We must remember we are women born, unapt to cope with men, and being ruled by mightier than ourselves. I needs must do but yield obedience to them and walk in power to exceed is madness and not wisdom. So Esmene, also Polynices and Oedipus' sister, is like, I'm not disobeying King Creon's rule. Like, we are women. Like, they're just going to kill us. Like, and they're in charge. They have power. He's the king. I am not going to disobey him. Antigone is like, you suck as a sister and a person. And maybe the laws of heaven, like, hey, the gods tell us we're supposed to bury our kin. Maybe that's a higher law than this guy who was sketchy and got the throne in a weird way anyway. So Antigone and Esmene have an argument, and Esmene's like, what are you doing? Like, they're going to kill you. And she's like, I don't even care. I must do it. I need to plead it's the gods, not Creon. Then the chorus comes in, and I gave you a little rhyme scheme here because the chorus kind of sings and talks in rhyme. So I gave you the rhyme scheme. Notice it at the end. And just so it's very different from how the other people talk in the play. It's its own kind of interesting character, and that's in the worksheet as well. Then we get to the scenes, and they talk about gods and the fate and Apollo, and give kind of a connection to the oracle. Then we've been talking about fate and free will all semester. It says now since they're described both on one day, so the brothers killed each other, slain by a two-edged fate. of mutual fratricide, so bro versus bro, they killed each other. In right of kinship, nearest to the dead, possess the throne and take the supreme power. So since Creon, now that the two descendants of the king didn't work out, he's like, the throne is totally mine. Touching the sons of Oedipus, Oedicles, who in this city's quarrel fought and fell, so he gets the hero's burial. Oedicles, page 9, gets the traitor's burial because he was a banished man and came back to try to take it. And Creon is acting like he tried to usurp the throne when he was at least the son of the king. So Creon said not to connive at disobedience. There's no such fool as to embrace his death. So Creon's like, yeah, he disobeyed me, and whoever else disobeys my decree to not bury Polynices, they're going to die too. So the sentinel is like, ooh, I don't know. And the sentinel is like a guard, so they had guards around the body, and they kind of changed shifts, and they went out to look at the body, and someone had buried it, and we know that someone is Antigone. They sprinkled thirsty dust over the form, added the proper rites, and has gone off. So she gave him the burial rites needed for his soul to move on, and they assume, notice, what man dared, but they don't even think that it might be a woman. And then here's our don't shoot the messenger. None love the messenger who brings bad news. Like, the sentinel's kind of afraid to tell Creon because he knows he's going to be pissed. And the senator, who kind of is like, hey, man, this seems not natural. Maybe it's time to, even though you're really mad, like, you don't want to be the fool, like the old supposedly wise guy that ends up being the fool. So maybe kind of check it, Creon, because I know that you're really mad, but let's relax for a while. Page 13. He talks about, what is your conscience? What's your values? How you got to analyze this. Even, that there's going to be people that are going to wonder, did you judge things right? Chance must decide that it's fate. What's going to happen? If somebody comes back, then somebody's going to come back, and then they're going to realize that Antigone has buried her brother, and she doesn't even care about what's going to happen to her, even though if it might mean death, because she really feels that it's the right thing to do. So as you go further, concentrate on the egos, pathos, logos. Look at each person's argument, who's credible, who's not as credible, what are they talking about, what is their kind of stake in it. And if you have questions, you can email me or DM me, and we will work it out. So go through really slowly, but now that you know kind of the backstory, there's a lot of hidden tension everywhere. All right, thanks. Have a good one.